My first price target for AIOZ in 2025 is going to be $15. Even though nothing I say is financial advice nor a guarantee, let me explain why I think so. And it's simply put because I think the AIOZ network is very amazing. I mean, after all, the AIOZ network is a decentralized physical infrastructure network for Web3 AI, streaming, and as well as storage. Now, to some people, this may seem very complicated because they're like, okay, this is just a bunch of caca, man. Who cares? But let's break this down because I think there's three key aspects when it comes to this. Again, AI, storage, and as well as streaming. Now, let's first start off with AI because, of course, that's the thing that AIOZ is most known for, in my opinion, arguably. And I think this right here is a genius move because if you take a look at AI, it's heading in a positive direction. For instance, right, the AI market is predicted to be worth nearly $2 trillion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. So that's insane. First of all, that's bigger than a lot of countries' GDP. And second of all, this could very well just be a conservative estimate because at the end of the day, no one has like a crystal ball, so to speak, to, determine exactly what something is going to be in the future. A lot of people just don't know that, right? And again, right, this may very well just be a conservative estimate. So I think that when it comes to AI, again, the future could look so amazing. Now, let's also take a look at the second aspect, which is storage. Now, this is a market that people don't really care in a lot of cases because they think it's boring. And I get it, right? It's not exciting. However, in my opinion, the potential still seems to be there because according to something called Fortune Business Insights, the global data storage market size is predicted to be worth nearly $800 billion by 2030. So straight off the bat, right, it's not going to be as big as AI at least predicted to, but still, it's a massive market nonetheless. It's amazing, and the trajectory is heading in the right place. At least that's the way to take a look at it. Now, not to mention, if you take a look at storage, what is something that could very well be the next big thing for it? Because as of right now, storage is highly centralized. It could very well be decentralization because through decentralization, a lot of the drawbacks that we often see with centralized data storage, they could very well be eliminated. Usually, centralized data storage is typically controlled by a single entity. Usually, there's these multiple single points of failure. So I think in some cases, arguably speaking, people don't like that. So of course, decentralized data storage could be the next big thing, but it's going to take time. Now, the third aspect I want to talk about is streaming because this right here, I think is a market that could be massive as well. For instance, yet again, according to Grandview Research, because, they like to predict things after all, by 2030, the video streaming market size is expected to be worth over $400 billion. So out of the three markets that AIOZ is primarily focused on, it is predicted to be worth the least. So take it for what it is, I suppose. However, in my opinion, this is still amazing nonetheless. And AIOZ, they pretty much don't miss. Again, right, they're focused on all the amazing markets. At least that's the way I take a look at it. Now, to a certain extent, I would argue that AIOZ is also somewhat focused on NFTs, even though I wouldn't say that it's the primary focus, but still, it also has a slight focus to this. So let's talk about this because last but not least, yet again, according to Grandview Research, because after all, their predictions seem to be available for a lot of markets, they do predict that the NFT market is going to be hypothetically worth, right, over $200 billion by 2030. So yeah, when it comes to NFTs, the potential is not the best, I would say, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the NFT market is done because some people thought it disappeared. They're like, okay, it pretty much went down to the caca gutter, right? But in my opinion, that seems to not be the case. I think there's going to be a massive resurgence in the future. So I think better days are ahead. Now, when it comes to AIOZ, not to mention, you take a look at, it's currently partners with NVIDIA. I mean, we all know that, right? NVIDIA is massive, not really much to be said about there. Not to mention, we take a look at Alibaba Cloud, hashtag Jack Ma. If you know, you know. Also on top of that, Google for startups. So that's pretty massive. Of course, we all know Google. We're using YouTube after all. But yeah, besides that point, and even Qualcomm as well. Qualcomm is very famous, very popular. Maybe not really mainstream, but still, very massive nonetheless. So when you take a look at something like AIOZ, I mean, they're amazing. These real deal entities, they're not going to want to partner with something that's complete caca. But when it comes to AIOZ, it's not like that. It's very amazing, which is why I think they have these amazing partnerships. Now, also, not to mention, some people may argue that, mass scale institutional adoption isn't going to happen to AIOZ in the next 6 months to like a year. What makes you think AIOZ is going to do well? Well, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter because if you think about it, right? sometimes in the world of cryptocurrencies, people just don't care. Simply put, if people actually cared about fundamentals, why did Luna Classic pump and find a bottom? You know what I mean? That has no future. Why would people pump Klima DAO? Why would something like Litecoin, which I think is Kaka, by the way, have such a massive rally back in 2021? Sometimes, again, people just don't care. They pump things for fun in some cases. Not to mention, we see many like DeFi projects, gaming projects, metaverse projects, just a bunch of projects in different sectors. Sometimes they never launch anything. They say they're going to, but they never do that. But then even during, a fully fledged bull run, despite them never launching anything, their native token, we've seen time and time again, just absolutely skyrocket and just do absolutely amazing. But then they never launch anything again, right? But it was just the anticipation. So when it comes to AIOZ, even though it may not gain like mass scale institutional adoption, let's say in the next year or two, it doesn't really matter because people just don't care in some cases. And if you take a look at AIOZ, community is very passionate. It has great exposure. I won't say it's listed like pretty much everywhere, but still it's listed in several big exchanges. Not to mention, again, people are very dedicated about this. Many people believe in it. So I don't think it's going to do bad. At least that's the way to take a look at it. And as my first price target, aka my worst case scenario price target, $15 during this bull run, I don't see why not. Now, my second price target for AIOZ is going to be $17.50. Now, some people may think this is crazy or cack or whatever, but here's the thing. If it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $20 billion, which isn't so bad, by the way. I mean, we've seen like Shiba Inu reach around 40. We've seen Dogecoin reach over 80. We've seen BNB reach over 100 billion. Now, I'm not saying that AIOZ has the fans that they have, because of course, AIOZ does not have that. Its fans compared to them, it's actually very embarrassing, compared to them. Again, it's not anywhere near that much, but still, even despite that, the reason why I use this example is to showcase that reaching, around a $20 billion market cap doesn't seem too insane in the grand scheme of things. At least that's the way to take a look at it. So again, AIOZ at the price of $17.50. I don't see why not during this bull run. That's just my opinion though. Now, my third and final price target for AIOZ is going to be $20. And if you've been watching my AIOZ videos for quite a while now, you'll know that this is actually my most bullish case price target scenario. And I'm not changing that because I think this bull run could be very amazing. You got to think about this, right? There's currently over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. This is, first of all, more than ever before in history. And second of all, pretty much double the figure that we saw during the peak of the 2021 bull run. So this is a very insane figure again, even though it's not even 10% of the world's population. Not to mention, you take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption, everything's just amazing. So the way I take a look at it is that with all those amazing factors, let's say once Bitcoin goes to the price of $150,000 and maybe even beyond, could you imagine what the altcoin season could look like? Now, Bitcoin is heading in such a positive direction because even though it hasn't reached the price of $100,000 yet at the time of this recording, hypothetically, I believe that it could very well reach that in the very near future because you take a look at the trajectory. I mean, it's very amazing, right? Bitcoin is over the price of $90,000 as we speak. So I think 100,000 could very well be in the horizon. Under 50,000, we'll have to see. But still, the way I take a look at it is that better days could be ahead. And if Bitcoin were to reach those great heights, as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. As altcoins do well, as the crypto space overall does amazing, AIOZ, I think, could hypothetically go to the price of $20 during this bull run, in my opinion, as the most bullish case scenario, hypothetically speaking, of course. And now some people may be wondering how soon. Now, usually altcoins as a worst case scenario, again, right, based off of history, they typically peak around a year and a half, or should I say 18 months after Bitcoin halving event. Now, the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April, so based off that, right, that would actually mean October of 2025 as a worst case, historically speaking, because that is around 18 months after April, of 2024. But even besides that point, that is why I titled this video 2025 price targets, because again, I'm taking a look at a worst case scenario. Now, could things peak sooner? Yes, like let's say in the next 6 months or whatever. I think so, but I don't think it's going to peak like in 2024. I think 2024, let's say December, it could do well, but 2025 is what I want to look at. Now, again, this is just pure speculation. We just don't know. Again, I don't have a magic crystal ball to tell the future. If I did, then it'd be a different story, right? But still, I don't have those capabilities whatsoever, so I can only speculate. But again, 2025 is what I'm looking at. Now, even still, despite that, whatever the time frame is, I'm going to still be dollar cost averaging, meaning that my buying strategy is anytime I acquire income, I'm holding, I'm just waiting. That's it, right? So again, I earn income. Let's say, for instance, I acquire AIOZ, I hold, and I just wait. That's it. Dollar cost averaging. That way I stay consistent. I'm not day trading, not using leverage, not swing trading. I'm just staying patient because I think better days are ahead. And again, as my most bullish case scenario, AIOZ at the price of $20 during this bull run wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.